Hello, I'm Brendan Heyck, joined by Fayeann Lawrence, a woman I deeply respect and admire, to discuss her solar journey and the work she's doing in the industry. Hello, Faye.
Hello, and thank you, B, for the introduction, and hello to everyone in the room. Thank you for joining me today, especially as I am not in the room physically with you, so thanks for your time and attention. I imagine that there's eating and drinking and definitely some networking to be done, so I'll try to be brief. Sharing my journey still isn't a comfortable undertaking for me because I meet so many truly awe-inspiring and respect-inspiring women in the course of my pursuits that it's hard not to feel a bit like an imposter. What do I possibly have to share that's any more interesting or noteworthy than any of their stories, or indeed of any of the stories of you in the room today? But I have come to acknowledge that one never knows what might connect with an audience member. Sometimes it's just about the timing of what you have to share. Sometimes it's about having the space in which to share it. And so I really believe in the purpose of the ASES WISE Forum to allow us to tell our stories, to share our lessons learned, and to help each other succeed.
Faye, I can tell you that I am tremendously proud, but how does winning this award make you feel?
Thank you. Well, obviously, I am honored to have my efforts recognized and applauded, as I think we all would be. Sometimes it can feel a bit like you are shouting into a hurricane. So it's nice to know that there's visibility on what we are all doing and that it's not all in vain. Any good we do for the planet or for the advancement of female leadership or for equity in policymaking is its own reward. And it is, it's nice to have the recognition that helps us to recharge when our energies might be waning. I hope that this and similar awards and recognition, though, motivates other women, those just joining on their solar journey, or those already on that journey. I hope it reinvigorates them to persevere. Over the past few years, I've seen a marked increase in the accessibility to career and educational opportunities in renewables, especially for women, and it creates new pathways for women in solar. So I hope that these acknowledgements help us all to be more aware of the options available for our career paths, and also that we get into the more technical and or strategic fields that are available to us, like engineering or system design, equipment design, management. Finally, it really this really helps to remind me of my place in the bigger picture and of our collective work's purpose and importance.
Faye, thinking back to the beginning, what started you in the solar industry? And specifically, what was the origin of your startup idea?
I joke that I stumbled and fell blurry-eyed into solar rather than chose it. I was meant to work at a solar company on a one-day assignment, and that turned into a career. The pace of growth in the New York City solar industry, as well as the startup culture and energy of the company at which I worked, allowed me a tremendous opportunity to learn various aspects of what it takes to run a solar company and run a company in general. So marketing, finance, sales, operations, installation, all of this was learned in a relatively short time compared to what it would have taken in a more siloed industry. We joke that solar is counted in dog years, so 1 = 7. This picture essentially shows me on the move, which my mother swears is basically how I always was throughout my childhood. I was always looking for something to get up to, looking around and asking questions. I believe that shortly after that picture was taken, she came to see what I was up to, and I had somehow gotten the car into neutral, and it was slowly edging its way out of our driveway. But that propensity to look around and ask questions and consider what else could be happening, what else can I be doing, that allowed me to recognize a few of the gaps and inadequacies in the industry at the time, at least what I felt they were. And firstly, one of them was how few women there were in the company and in the industry at large that I was aware of. And that was especially noticeable given how fantastic the women that I did work with, the few that I worked with, were at their jobs. I also noticed that the large percentage of women who were fulfilling more admin or admin related roles versus the few who were in the more technical fields or even in management. And again, there's nothing wrong per se with fulfilling the admin roles, but I feel like there just weren't as many opportunities, or the awareness was not there of what else was available. I see that colleges and universities have since absolutely picked up and started offering more technical subjects in the renewable space. And finally, and thankfully, I took a deliberate look around, and it helped me to identify the niche that Sologistics now fill, which is for a group of experts who know their way around the design and engineering and permitting and inspection, the operations essentially process, so that sales guys and installers can focus on what they are good at and have that headache taken off of them. So the company that I went on to form, Sologistics, was founded to tackle all three of these needs that I identified.
You've had plenty of successes. We're here to celebrate some of those today, but also in advancing the journey of those who are hearing you speak. What were some of the challenges you had in starting your company? Were there times, especially in the beginning, where you thought to yourself, this might not work, this could fail?
Absolutely. Anyone in the audience who has, everyone knows, especially entrepreneurs, that doubt is a constant, unwelcome companion of entrepreneurs. And it was many months before I left my job. So I left my job. It was many months before I got my first paying client. And in the interim, of course, in order to build your business, you are spending money without making any. So a few things that did help me get through that rough patch that I remember. One of them was sticking to a lean and documented budget, which doesn't sound easy, and it's actually much harder than it sounds. And then something I like to call the Tarzan principle, which is letting go of one vine before grabbing hold of the next, I guess. And in my case, that was leaving my job so that I had no choice but to have Sologistics succeed, because I had left the security of a paying job. Some people were better with keeping that. Some people, like myself, the Tarzan principle is what's necessary. I've got to let go of that vine before reaching out for the next one. Perseverance. So it sounds cliche because a lot of people say it, but a lot of people say it because in this case, it's true. Put one foot in front of the other every day, and that is how we get to those milestones. Mental and emotional fortitude that I was unaware that I possessed at the time. And then, particularly now, recognizing that it is okay to not be okay. Given what we've all just come through, I think it's really important that we allow ourselves and are allowed by others to acknowledge that it is sometimes okay not to be okay, just not for too long. And then brass balls, a spine of steel, and a shameful taste for ramen absolutely helped in the beginning as well. And some of those still help today, but I won't say which ones. In the early days, I also felt a need, whether real or imagined, to overcompensate for being one of the only females in a largely male room at the time. And this for me meant extra preparation in getting my words ready, preparing longer than I would have for a meeting with a more heterogeneous group of my peers, deciding on and considering my appearance and how it might be interpreted, and then just the extra effort to take up space in the room. Now, I will say I have found that by and large, my male counterparts, our male counterparts in the solar industry are among some of the most solid and supportive men across industries that I've worked in. Obviously, there are a few exceptions to that, and they know themselves, and more than likely, we know them as well. But by and large, I found that to be more of a challenge, an issue with me, and not necessarily anything that the industry was feeding me. And speaking of overcompensating, it's interesting that I did all of this run through before, and as you can see there, a friend of mine who's also a broadcaster, we did the whole works with the makeup and the set and the filming and all of that, and it just did not feel genuine. In looking back at it, it felt contrived, and so I squashed it, and here we are now. I guess the lesson that I learned there and continue to learn is go with your gut. Your instinct knows what it's telling you to do. I don't think any of you would have liked the outcome of that filming. I think you would have all hated it, and I'm looking for a different outcome today. So go with your gut. Back to the initial challenges though, in the beginning, looking around and not seeing representation was quite disheartening at first, until I recognized that I was the representation. I was in the room. And so I hope that we recognize the importance of representation, and that we encourage and foster that representation in our hiring practices, and that we provide opportunities that don't exclude groups of people, but perhaps we start our recruitment in disenfranchised areas or in hub zones or in more underrepresented communities. So this is what the team looked like very early on, and it does appear that we were excluding a particular group. But over the years, I continue to be, there we are. I continue to be very proud of and grateful for the inclusive culture that we and my team foster at Sologistics, and that I see increasingly mirrored in our partner organizations. And our current complement is 60% female and 50% BIPOC, based in large part on our hiring practices and who our culture attracts. Another common challenge, and I am running through the challenges and focusing on them a little bit, because it was one of the areas that I was asked to focus on, especially for the people in the room. So another common challenge that I think is true for most entrepreneurs is getting access to capital. So as a new business owner, banks and established lenders generally are not inclined to back you financially as a new business owner. It's the catch-22 of they want to see success before they back you financially, but you need capital in order to get to that success. Also, for me, as a relatively new immigrant at the time, I didn't have the sufficient credit history, and I had insufficient debt to make me trustworthy or desirable to traditional lenders. Thankfully, though, there are some resources out there, and at the end of this, there is a slide with resources, and obviously, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. But one of them is called Kiva. I think it's kiva.org is the website. And really what they are is an aggregator of friends and family and those people who would lend and support you anyway, as well as strangers who might think that you're onto something and want to lend, and they can lend as little as $25. And then Kiva matches your loans essentially, because you do pay them back, but in a much more manageable way. And Kiva, as well as a few other programs, I really credit with getting us through, giving us that runway for those first few months of building up the business and not yet making any money.
Faye, you're involved in both solar domestically in the US as well as internationally. Can you tell me about that experience and what you're involved in?
Absolutely, I'm happy to. As a member of the board of the New York Solar Energy Industries Association, and as a member of their Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, or DEDI committee. And we are and solar economy, regardless of their demographic. We also enable policies that encourage the industry to reflect the diversity of our communities and to uphold the values of a just and equitable society. As to my work abroad, though, I am originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and I am a resident for part of the year of Grenada, and both of those countries are in the Caribbean. So in addition to the work I do in the US, I'm committed to giving back to both the island that raised me and the island that adopted me. And I consult on energy policy and work on developing pathways to increased renewable energy in the Caribbean. And in my spare time, I'm just kidding, we all know that there is no such thing. I'm working on building the Sologistics Training Academy. And that is meant to provide intern to employee opportunities to young people, as well as those later in their career path who might be looking to make a change or a difference, to enable them and provide them with the skill sets and training necessary to compete in the international renewables industry. One thing I hear over and over is the need for mentorship and or apprenticeship. I myself would really love the opportunity. And I think I know I hear this from a number of business owners when we get together and we're talking about, you know, what are we lacking? What would we like to see more of? What we'd like to see more of is a mentor just a few rungs ahead of us on the ladder who can really help us navigate what's ahead. So I'm a big fan and a proponent of mentorship and apprenticeship. And so I and a few other friends volunteer to provide that mentorship and coaching to young women through an annual all-girls leadership camp. There they are, called Camp Glow. And it really is, the name is fitting because it really is how we all feel coming out of that experience. So I strongly encourage the people in the room to become mentors if you have the opportunity, or make an opportunity for yourself and mentor someone. Just last month, the world lost really a titan of a woman, and my first mentor, Mrs. Melba Andrews, and she was extraordinarily influential in helping me to identify how wildly capable I am. And I say that with no hubris and all the hubris. She was, her impact on the person that I am cannot be underestimated. And if I am able to have a fraction of that positive impact on someone's life, I consider it a life well spent.
That's beautiful, Faye. To conclude, what would you like the audience to remember out of what you've shared with them today?
I want them to remember every word verbatim. But what I really want is, what I would really hope that people remember or take away from this is that it's up to each of us to deliberately foster in our organizations a culture that supports the well-being, both physical and mental, of our counterparts, and prioritizes work-life balance. As my partner says, work is like children's toys. It'll take up as much space as you let it. And I love that saying, and I call it to mind often. My team has worked remotely. I and my team have worked remotely from day one. And we have done so. We have built the company so we are able to do so from the places and locations that make us happiest and most productive. And I credit it in part for why we have such a low attrition rate. And I am told that, and I myself experienced that, we have been working happily and productively, for years before the world required it. And we are still able to consistently deliver for our clients. So there has been no trade-off in productivity. In fact, I think it only helps. So after all that preamble, I guess the message I want to leave you with is to choose to implement human resource policies that prioritizes the well-being of the human beings with whom we work. I would also like the audience to consider that the future recipients of this award are likely sitting next to you in the audience today. And so wouldn't it be wonderful to get to next year or just to go on to do good? So I would really love it if we all took the time, if you all took the time to get to know the person next to you, get to know a woman that you're speaking with over the next 3 days more meaningfully and honestly, and see how you can support her. And I promise to be brief. I don't know if I've met that promise, but in an effort to still do so, I'm going to wrap up. I would really like to thank the American Solar Energy Society for this recognition. I'm truly honored to have been considered among this year's finalists, and I am humbled to join the ranks of the previous amazing servant leaders who have won this award, the CEOs and project managers and teachers, all of the amazing women who are trailblazing and who are breaking barriers in their work. And last but absolutely not least, I need to thank my Sologistics team, without whom I would not be able to do any of this. Thank them for their hard work and their continued support in making my vision a reality every day. And most especially, thank you to Kiana Michan, who is in the audience with you today. And she is the one who made sure that I was ready and represented for today's presentation. So thank you, Kiana. She is going to be the one who is blushing profusely at the public recognition and attention. Thank you all so much for your time and attention today, and never forget how wildly capable we all are. Thank you.